want to go to what is a big win today for the administration from the Supreme Court. I mean, it handed you all a win on ending deportation protections for a certain group of migrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. So you have these wins. I think it was the second one on this particular issue just in the last few weeks. Yet, even just yesterday, we saw whenever a judge rules against this administration, you say they're going rogue. Do you think a judge should just rubber stamp what your White House does? If not, what checks and balances do you think should be in place for this White House?
It is not the job of a district court judge to perform an individual green light or red light on every single policy that the president takes as the head of the executive branch. Just think about the premise baked into your question, respectfully, Pam. You're saying that when the American people elect a president of the United States of America,
I'm not saying that.
Well, it's the implication, who is the sole head of the executive branch. Well, let me finish. I will answer the question happily. But look, when you have these kinds of lazy assumptions built into questions, it makes it hard to have a constructive dialogue.
What is a lazy assumption? I said you all had a win.
You said no. You said is it my expectation?
I'm speaking because now you're putting.
You said is it my expectation? It's not just you. It's the whole media. In other words, when you
I know
hear
you
a sentence like,
it is a completely fair question. You say judges who rule against the White House
and I will
go rogue.
gladly answer it. When you say, do we think district court judges should rubber stamp each action? There is a premise that is built into that is absurd. The president is the sole head of the executive branch. He's the only officer in the entire government that's elected by the entire American people. Democracy cannot function. In fact, democracy does not exist at all if each action the president takes, foreign policy, diplomatic, military, national security, has to be individually approved by 700 district court judges. That's democracy. So if there's 15 communist crazy judges on the court, that each of them as a team working together can block and freeze each and every executive action. Joe Biden was allowed by that same court system
Some of them
to
are
import
Trump
20
judges,
million
though.
illegal foreigners
why did Trump
into
put
this
these
country.
crazy...
Boy. So we got to talk about this pretty amazing exchange that took place on CNN's airwaves between White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller and this CNN anchor who is going to be defending illegal immigrants and woke activist judges. Now, before we get into this video, I have to give you guys a little bit of a background on what this CNN anchor is going to ask Stephen Miller about, because CNN has essentially taken the pleasure of doing investigative journalism to defend illegal immigrants, right? And this story involves an illegal immigrant who is in the country illegally, who is a criminal, that was accused of threatening the president of the United States. Now, CNN went out of their way to investigate this threat against the president of the United States from this illegal immigrant, or this alleged threat, and they found that, hey, this illegal may be the victim of essentially identity fraud, right? Somebody writing this letter saying that it was him or trying to pretend to be him, even though he didn't really write the letter.
Well, you've got this, Dana. ICE agents arresting an illegal immigrant accused of threatening to assassinate President Trump. Officials say he passed a note to ICE agents that said the following: "We are tired of this president messing with us Mexicans. We have done more for this country than you white people. You've been deporting my family, and I think it is time Donald J. Trump get what he has coming to him." End quote. Tom Homan, border czar from the White House. Tom, good morning to you, and thanks for coming back. So he's got a rap sheet. It's pretty long. He's 54 years old. He's entered the U.S. illegally at least 9 times. Charged with a felony hit and run, criminal damage of property, disorderly conduct with a, quote, domestic abuse modifier. All right, so he was picked up in Wisconsin. What's the status of this case, Tom?
Well, he's being detained. He'll be removed. I mean, he's exactly the priority that President Trump has while he's focusing on public safety threats and significant criminal history. And, you know, foolish on him to make a threat against the president. It's just going to add another criminal charge. I mean, Secret Service is investigating that allegation. He'd probably end up with another charge on top of the others. And we'll detain him, and as soon as he gets out, he'll be deported. And, you know, ICE has made it clear public safety threats are the priority. And bad decision on his part to make a threat against the president. That's just going to add another felony charge.
Now, allegedly, the reason why the letter was written was to get the illegal immigrant deported before a assault and robbery case went to trial. Okay, the illegal immigrant allegedly was the victim of assault and robbery, and that case was going to go to trial, and whoever wrote this letter wanted the illegal deported. Now, what CNN doesn't understand is that it doesn't matter whether or not the illegal actually wrote the letter. He's here illegally. He is a criminal. He has committed crimes in this country, and therefore he should be deported regardless of whether or not he actually wrote the letter. But again, CNN is trying to pretend as if there's some type of travesty or some type of injustice that is happening because the Trump administration has detained this man and he is subject to deportation.
CNN has some exclusive new reporting tonight on a stunning allegation, and a serious one, if it's true, made by the Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem yesterday, accusing an undocumented immigrant of sending a letter threatening to kill President Trump. Tonight, though, sources tell CNN that investigators actually believe that individual was set up. Law enforcement believes the man, Ramon Morales Reyes, never wrote this letter that the secretary posted here, which promises to, quote, self-deport back to Mexico after shooting, quote, your precious president in his head. CNN's law enforcement correspondent Whitney Wild has this exclusive reporting. Whitney, what exactly do investigators believe happened here?
Well, Caitlin, what they think happened here was that this was an effort to try to benefit a man in another case. So to put it plainly, Reyes was the victim of an assault and robbery case. And what sources we spoke to believe happened here was that the intention was to try to get Reyes deported before that robbery and assault case went to trial later this summer. And here's how investigators figured it out, Caitlin. This was a pretty standard investigation. They reviewed this letter, they went to investigate the threat, and they had Reyes do a handwriting sample. And what they found was that the handwriting sample that Reyes provided did not match the handwriting of the letter that you see on your screen right there, and that was sent to multiple different agencies. And further, Caitlin, investigators reviewed jail calls involving a person they believe was involved in actually penning this letter. The Milwaukee Police Department told CNN they are investigating an identity theft and a victim intimidation case surrounding this incident. There are no charges filed yet. The Department of Homeland Security told us when we presented, what we were prepared to report to them, said that the threat against the president remains under investigation. They say that through their investigation, they have determined that Reyes is an undocumented migrant, that he is here illegally, and that he is going to remain in custody. Certainly many more questions to answer, Caitlin, but very stark 180 from the narrative that was being pushed yesterday, according to sources that we've spoken with.
Yeah, so I want you guys to understand, when it comes to Joe Biden, who is the sitting president of the United States of America, he was mentally declining in front of the world for everybody to see. CNN refused to do this level of investigative journalism, right, that they did on behalf of this illegal immigrant in order to try to make it seem like this illegal immigrant is some type of victim because he's about to be deported, right? Again, it is fascinating how CNN will use resources to do investigative journalism for an illegal immigrant, right, on behalf of an illegal immigrant, but they won't do that to investigate whether or not a president, a sitting president, a Democrat president is cognitively declining. Okay, this is the current state of our mainstream liberal media. So without further ado, let's get into this exchange between Stephen Miller and this CNN anchor. So without further ado, let's get into it.
It's elected by the entire American people. Democracy cannot function. In fact, democracy does not exist at all if each action the president takes, foreign policy, diplomatic, military, national security, has to be individually approved by 700 district court judges. That's democracy. So if there's 15 communist crazy judges on the court, that each of them as a team working together can block and freeze each and every executive action. Joe Biden was allowed by that same court system
Some of them
to
are Trump
import 20
judges,
million
though.
illegal foreigners.
Why did Trump
into
put
this
these
country.
crazy communist judges, as you call them, on the bench?
You heard President Trump himself say that the Federal Society and Leonard Leo has created a broken system for judicial vetting. And God knows this time around, we are not going to be using...
So does that mean he doesn't support picking Amy Coney Barrett for the Supreme Court?
What it means is simply this and nothing more. We're not going to be using the Federal Society to make judicial nominations at all going forward. But let me tell you about these rogue judges. This is the most litigated issue over the last 10 years. Over the last 10 years, whether or not to deport the foreigners who invaded our country illegally. That is the most litigated issue. You want a democracy in this country? When Americans vote, when they cry out and they beg for a president to come and save them from this invasion, and some district court judge in San Francisco or Manhattan or Los Angeles tries to shut it down and shield these foreigners from deportation, while the courts did nothing to stop Joe Biden and his administration and his officers, the Mayorkas, from overseeing this invasion. And of course, we celebrate the fact the Supreme Court stepped in
and actually went with the Trump administration, the previous one with Biden. But
nobody stopped Joe Biden from flooding this country with foreign invaders. And I will say to you,
so let me follow up with that,
and we celebrate the fact that 500,000 of those can now be deported because the Supreme Court justly stepped in and stopped these crazy lower court injunctions. Congress has reserved to the president by law the authority to conduct immigration enforcement, and the argument you're making
jurisdiction is certainly shared by many Americans. The Supreme Court right now is looking at whether judges can issue a nationwide injunction. That issue in particular is certainly valid to be discussed. But there are several lower court judges that have raised the idea that this White House isn't following its court order. Is this administration committed to following the court rulings and the legal process?
We are committed to following and obeying the laws of the United States, and the president has complied with all court orders. Am I going to sit here today and say, for example, that if a district court judge ordered us to, say, take 1,000 troops from Iraq and move them to Afghanistan, that we would just do that? If a district court judge ordered us, for example, to reveal the secret location of a CIA base overseas to the entire world, and then all the CIA officers in that base would be murdered and killed? Am I going to sit here today and engage in radical hypotheticals? This administration has religiously complied with even the most unlawful court orders, but it completely upends the constitutional system to have a single judge in Boston assert the same powers of the President of the United States is such an offense to democracy. And on this network, we heard the word democracy, democracy, democracy for God knows how many years during the Biden administration when they were trying to throw President Trump in jail, claiming somehow that was what democracy required, when in fact the Democrat Party has been waging war against democracy. They should be renamed the Communist Party, and district court judges that are trying to keep millions of illegal aliens here to steal our jobs, to steal our livelihood, to steal our benefits. There's nothing more on track than talking about the fact that the constitutional crisis of our time are district court judges keeping illegal aliens on our soil who have no right to be here.
Stephen, this is my show. I want to hear what you have to say. I've been respectful and giving you the opportunity. But
apparently you don't, because you're not letting the man talk, right? I mean, let him finish his sentence. Let him finish his thought, right? See, that's the thing about these CNN anchors. They let Democrats just go on and on and on with their gaslighting and their lies. And then you get a man that comes on the network and actually spits some truth, right? This is rare truth on CNN's airways. And this woman, she can't stand to hear it, right? She can't stand to hear it. She's so triggered by the fact that Stephen Miller is correct. The actual constitutional crisis that is happening in this country is the fact that these district judges believe that they can just institute these national injunctions in order to stop the president from carrying out the agenda that the American people voted for, right? It's one thing for the Supreme Court to step in and to make a ruling, right? Which could, block the president or stop the president from doing something. When it comes to just, domestic policy and things like that, you have these district court judges trying to run out the clock on the Trump administration. That's what they're trying to do. Okay. And that's why you have some of these judges that aren't necessarily Democrat judges. They're Republican judges as well, too. And that was what was brought up during this interview, is that, some of these judges are Republicans, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're acting in good faith. Okay. Because a lot of these judges are anti-Trump. A lot of these judges were picked because Mitch McConnell and some of these other establishment neoconservatives recommended these judges to President Trump during his first administration. President Trump is not a Washington insider, so you can imagine that a lot of these judges were picked because of the fact that, again, you had the conservative establishment, the Republican establishment, recommending these picks to President Trump. Okay, that's how you end up with a Amy Coney Barrett, for example. So this time around, I can imagine President Trump is going to listen to other people, right? He's going to defer to other people when it comes to picking these judges. Okay, so regardless, moving forward, what you have here is a situation where these district court judges are trying to exert power over the executive branch with these national injunctions, and essentially it has to stop, right? That is the issue at play here, okay? It's one thing for the Supreme Court to say, no, the president can't do something. It's another for a district court judge to basically stop the president from enacting his agenda. Because again, the point, what they're trying to do here is that they're trying to run out the clock. They're trying to essentially have all of these cases get stuck in court, okay? And they want this stuff to play out over the next 4 years so that the president doesn't actually get anything done, right? That is what they want to do. That's what they're trying to do. And that is just completely and totally unacceptable.
I also need to jump in because time is of the essence. And I want to ask you about our CNN reporting that Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem posted a stunning allegation saying that an undocumented migrant sent a letter threatening to kill the president, promising to self-deport after the assassination. CNN reporting shows that investigators believe the migrant was set up. It was a victim of a setup. What is the administration going to do now? And this is an undocumented immigrant. I do want to note that. But this was someone who came forward, was a victim of a crime, and now law enforcement believes he was set up. Go ahead.
Well, I want to clarify what you mean, so we're talking about the same thing. Are you saying this immigrant was here illegally?
Yes, but I am, and that's why I said that. I clarified that.
You said undocumented, and I wasn't clear what that means. I'm assuming they have a fake ID. I'm assuming they have a fake social security number.
That's neither here nor there. That's getting away from the
question,
question, Stephen. I want this to be, and call me naive, a good faith discussion about what's happening right now.
But when we use language that's designed to obscure the truth, that's not good faith.
All right,
does this alien is an illegal alien. They're not an undocumented migrant.
Okay, that's fine. That's another discussion for another day.
I don't know the details of the assassination threat. All I can say, based on what you're telling me, is there's an illegal alien in our country who's making menacing threats. Regardless of the facts or circumstances, we don't want him here. We're going to get to the bottom of it, and I would gladly come back on when I have more information to share with you.
They were set up, just to be clear. But quickly,
so
where is the White House on habeas corpus?
The illegal alien was treated unfairly. Yes, I'm sure the illegal alien was treated very unfairly.
Okay. Where is the White House on
Yo, Stephen Miller is so based, right? He's so based. He might be one of my favorite people in the Trump administration, right? I'm so serious, okay? Because, again, it's just so silly. He's right. This is so silly. This woman is accusing him of not arguing in good faith when she's using terms like undocumented migrant, right? It's like, yes, you're trying to obscure who we're talking about. This person is in the country illegally. The fact that you're even asking about what the fate of this person is going to be is just ridiculous, considering the fact that regardless of whether or not he wrote the letter, he didn't write the letter. He's here illegally. He's essentially come into the country multiple times illegally. He has committed crimes in this country, and he should be deported regardless of whether or not he actually wrote the letter. Again, where was this investigative journalism when Biden was in office, right? When Biden was mentally decaying in office, where was CNN doing this type of investigative journalism? Oh, no, they didn't do investigative journalism. They said that, well, you know what? We really are afraid to know the truth because it might help Trump. Okay, so in the case of a sitting president, CNN says, nah, we're not going to do investigative journalism. In the case of an illegal immigrant, they all of a sudden now want to do investigative journalism to try to make the illegal immigrant out to be some type of victim. Again, this is despicable, right? It is shameful what this network has become. It really is.
The White House on revoking habeas corpus, because you said a couple weeks ago you were looking at suspending that. Where does that stand right now?
Well, as you know, what I said is that under the Constitution, the government has the authority to suspend habeas in a time or circumstance of invasion. Now, what we are talking about in this context is solely with respect to a subset of illegal aliens who are already subject to deportation and expulsion under the laws of the United States.
So what are you going to do? Will the White House suspend the habeas corpus?
But it is our hope and expectation that the court system, and in particular the Supreme Court, will end the practice of district court judges unlawfully interfering in the immigration enforcement of the United States. Under the Immigration and Nationality Act, it's a very important point, Congress stripped the district courts of jurisdiction in matters of immigration. So each and every time a district court, in other words, they created Article 2 immigration courts in the executive branch and stripped Article 3 courts of jurisdiction. So every time a district court is setting national immigration policy, that district court judge is violating the law.
That's not true.
And they're,
that's not. You're talking about a law that's specific to temporary protected status. That's a specific sliver. They're not saying that judges can't weigh in on immigration. That's just not true.
Well, unfortunately, it is true. Are you familiar with the difference between Article 2 immigration courts and Article 3 judicial courts?
Absolutely, I am. But what
Why
I'm
do you
saying is,
think-
so are
why
you
do you
saying the
think
White
Congress-
House has
hold on a
court
second.
blanche over all
Why-
immigration and a
why-
judge can't step in and do anything? I mean, that there
A
is no
district
law
court
in the
judge has
books.
a district court
to
judge
allow
has
that.
no authority in this space whatsoever.
But
Not even a
that's-
little bit. Not
that's
even a
not
small
true.
amount.
And-
let alone
and
it is
habeas-
true. So
that is just
why
not true.
answer me this? Why did Congress create Article 2 immigration courts? Because they didn't want Article 3 courts, and in fact prohibited Article 3 courts from adjudicating individual cases.
Okay.
Is it really your belief? As if it is, that's breathtaking to me. That when we're
Okay.
deporting an illegal alien, we have to get permission from an Article 3 district court judge?
Okay,
Like a
it's
trial
not my
judge?
belief.
Is that your
It's how
view?
it's how the law works and the Constitution
No,
works.
the
but
law
just-
says explicitly that individual immigration cases fall underneath the Attorney General of the United States under Article
Okay.
2. And the
Look,
Article 3 courts have been stripped of jurisdiction
is-
wholly in this area.
There is
Putting
a law,
aside
and
even
it's
the
a
issue
temporary
of
protected
nationwide
status
injunction.
that says it's not subjected to judicial review, but that
That's
review,
just
but that
one
does
of-
not
that's just
apply
one
to
of
all
endless
immigration
examples.
issues. It's one
Well,
law
first
from
of all,
Congress.
I'm glad
It's a
that you're
specific one. Hold on,
no, I'm glad that you're
Elon,
conceding that TPS rulings are
Stephen.
unlawful. But the entire structure
Stephen,
of
well,
the
the Supreme
INA
Court weighed in on that.
strips these-
I am saying yes. The Supreme Court said the Trump administration was right on that
One
issue.
of many
twice in the
examples.
last
We are
few
always
weeks.
right.
But
Thank
let
you.
me ask you. Okay, well, not every judge agrees with that. But let me go to.
Well, I mean, the Supreme Court agreed, right? When it came to Biden just waving a magic wand and letting all these illegals into the country, the Supreme Court agreed with the Trump administration. Yeah, we can roll that back. Which, by the way, these CNN anchors, these propagandists, they were never concerned about Biden allowing all these illegals into the country and whether or not that is lawful. The things that they were doing, okay, to parole the illegals into the country, flying them in, letting them through the border. Again, no concern whatsoever. Now all of a sudden they're so concerned, okay, about what happens when we deport these people, when we get them out of the country when they should have been let in the first place. Again, this is shameful. This is despicable. This is why people aren't watching CNN anymore, right? And shout out to Stephen Miller, who I think is probably one of the most based individuals in the Trump administration. This guy, every single time he goes on national television, he just schools these anchors. He knows his stuff, right? And this woman clearly is frustrated that Stephen Miller is light years smarter and more intelligent than she is, and that is why he's right, right? That's why he continues to be right over and over and over again. And this is hilarious, right? It really is. CNN should be ashamed of themselves for defending illegals, right? For defending open borders, for defending these activist judges. They're wrong. They know they're wrong. But again, they got to push the agenda on behalf of the Democrats and against Trump. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.